The World Series is over, which means we have a bunch of news to talk about up next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5 on Wednesday, November 8th. I am Frank Samfeld, joined by Scott White. The first time we're doing this podcast since the Rangers have won the World Series. Congratulations to them. Let's talk some news and notes, Scott. We have 3 managerial hirings so far. Craig Counsell, out of nowhere, signs with the Chicago Cubs a 5-year deal worth more than $40 million. The Guardians named former catcher Stephen Vogt as their manager. He is a first-time manager. And the Mets brought in Carlos Mendoza, also a first-time manager. He was previously the Yankees bench coach for the past 4 years. Can you see all of these having a potential fantasy impact in 2024?
Well, they all could. Of course, we don't know the tendencies for the first-time managers. Craig Counsell has been a manager for a long time, and we do have some idea of his tendencies. I think you pointed out in the full-length podcast, Frank, that Craig Counsell teams have generally ranked high for stolen bases. Let's see, in the notes here, managed the Brewers since 2015, and they had the 3rd most steals of any team during that span. Personnel plays some role in that, I would say, but it was a long enough period of time that I think we can deduce Craig Counsell likes to let his guys run. Now, Nico Horner for the Cubs already emerged as a prolific base stealer, had 43 of them this past year. I'm not sure he has the potential to improve much in that area. But Dansby Swanson went from 18 steals in his final year with the Braves to 9 in his first year with the Cubs. Maybe he can reverse that trend under Counsell. We expected Christopher Morel to be more of a base stealer than he ended up being. The problem was less his hitting and getting at bats than just he didn't run much when he was on base for a guy with, the top 20% of the league for sprint speed. That could change and hopefully will under Craig Counsell. Not much to take away from the others, given their lack of history there. But yeah, it's a lot of turnover in the managerial ranks heading into 2024.
I will say this, for the Guardians and Mets, they both very clearly have a top-tier closer in Emmanuel Clase and Edwin Diaz. So obviously, we shouldn't have anything to worry about with that, which is a huge relief for fantasy purposes.
I mean, the closer scene is pretty stable right now heading into a new offseason. It's amazingly stable, actually. You could check out my early relief pitcher ranks for 2024 on the site right now, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Like, it's kind of off topic here, but like it's remarkably stable. There are about 25 closer situations that seem more or less set heading into the offseason.
Famous last words, Scott. Relief pitchers being stable. As of now, it does look that way, but we'll see how everything else shakes out this offseason. We had a bunch of options, either accepted or declined, and the White Sox declined their $14 million club option on Tim Anderson. I'm sure there will be tons of interest in free agency. It's already been reported that Anderson was playing most of the season with a knee injury that he suffered back in April. So that's one side of it, Scott. And then the other is that the White Sox do have a top prospect in Colson Montgomery, who he's only played 37 games at AA. So I don't think it's opening day. I don't think it's early in the season, but maybe in the second half of the season could have an impact in 2024.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's going to be a consensus top 10 prospect. Great on-base guy, great plate discipline in the minors. And though he hasn't fully actualized his power yet, there's a lot of power potential for Colson Montgomery. And if he takes a leap in that department this year, I think we could see him up sooner than later. I mean, maybe it's more of a September situation just because that seems to be the way teams are going since the new CBA and the draft pick incentives related to that. But yeah, Colson Montgomery is going to be a name that matters in fantasy at some point in 2024, I would say. As for Tim Anderson, he's only 30. He's only 30. A lot of the underlying numbers paint a more favorable picture than the overlying numbers. I do think there's some question whether he'll get a chance to be a full-time shortstop in 2024. I would assume some team would throw him that role, but maybe contending is more important for him and he latches onto some team as a utility player. He reached base at only a 286 clip this past year.
Ugh.
That might scare teams away. Hit only 1 home run in 123 games. So, he had a horrible year. Don't get me wrong. But if he does get an opportunity, I do think Tim Anderson's a bounce back candidate that you could get for very cheap in leagues, even leagues that require a third middle infielder.
Some other notable options. The Braves picked up Charlie Morton's $20 million option. Josh Bell exercised $16.5 million to stay with the Marlins. Justin Turner declined his $13.4 million option with the Red Sox. That one could affect fantasy. Hopefully more playing time for Willy Abreu, Cedar Rafaela, and Jarren Duran. And the end of an era. The Reds declined their $20 million club option with Joey Votto. He spent 17 years in Cincinnati. It's time for the kids to get some run there with the Reds, and apparently Votto already receiving interest from the Toronto Blue Jays. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Audacy app, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.